Here on Joy News on Multi TV. Coming up, Fortas questions capacity of CFA boss to legally challenge its acquisition of Merchant Bank. Court orders Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly to hand over KJTR lorry terminal to private operators, Freco MD, within 5 days. MPs debate management of workload ahead of Christmas break. President Mahama says industrialization of Takrade will include a revamping of the region's rail network. And all government agencies banned from giving out the traditional seasonal gift hampers this Christmas and New Year. We also have business, sports, showbiz and international news coming up.
News at 8 with Israel Lai.
The very first story, private equity fund Fortas is challenging the capacity of the executive director of the Center for Freedom and Accuracy to sue over its acquisition of Merchant Bank. Andrea Wooney this week filed a suit in court seeking an injunction against the controversial sale of the state-owned Merchant Bank and named Fortas and 12 others. The plaintiff is seeking a perpetual injunction on the sale of SNIT's 90.6% stake in Merchant Bank to Fortas Equity Fund. The counsel for Fortas, Tony Lither, Thursday asked the court to strike out the case, arguing that the executive director of the centre, Andrea Wooney, who filed the suit, lacks locus to bring the case before the court, explaining that he is not a contributor to the Social Security and National Insurance Trust SNIT's majority shareholder in Merchant Bank. The case has been adjourned to Tuesday, December 10, 2013. Meanwhile, lawyers for Center for Freedom and Accuracy have condemned claims by Fortas that it has completed the acquisition of Merchant Bank, describing the announcement as an error, prejudicial and contempt of the Court of Ghana. Kofi Bentel is asking the general public to disregard the claim, warning the controversial transaction is far from over. A High Court in Kumasi in the Ashanti region is giving city authorities 5 days to return management of the KJTR lorry terminal to private managers, Freco FD. The decision reinforces an earlier interim injunction restraining the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly from taking over the facility. Mohamed Nuruddin was in court and filed this report.
Proceeding on the 2nd of December 2013, before the counsel for the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly could move the motion, the counsel for Freco FD Limited, Richard Apianchi, took an objection to the effect that the defendant was in contempt. But lawyer of the defendant, Thaddeus Sori, argued that there was no issue of contempt arising in the view of the fact that the defendant has an application for stay of execution of order. The order was held in abeyance and the case was adjourned to Thursday, 5th December 2013. In court today, the sitting judge, Justice Emmanuel Amuyati, said the objection is funded by inherent jurisdiction of the court and the common law. He explained that as a matter of public policy, it is important to maintain the authority and sanctity of the court at all times. Justice Emmanuel Amuyati further said the conduct of the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly affects the authority of the court and therefore the court would exercise its own inherent jurisdiction not to hear the defendant, for them to pick themselves for 5 working days and come back to move the application. But counsel for the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly was unhappy with the ruling. He said it is within their right to manage the terminal because they have 2 motions pending before the court, thus motion for stay of execution and motion for stay of proceedings. He added that until these items are heard, determined against the Assembly and their rights are exhausted, they are acting within their rights.
I respect the court, I respect the ruling of the judge, but we have our rights, so the rights is being ahead. I think my legal team is doing all that is needed to be done. I think it's quite interesting and quite good. As I said earlier, I respect the court's ruling, and we also have days to respect what the court has said. And I think it's going well, and I'm very excited and happy.
The council has filed an appeal to challenge the ruling. Meanwhile, Freco FD Limited is happy with the ruling.
Today's judgment was fair and justice. There was justice. We just pray that the KMA will obey the court order. In the next 5 days, we will vacate the premises.
13th of November 2013 granted an interim injunction refraining the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly from managing the KGTR bus terminal, but the Assembly disobeyed the orders of the court.
Now, Parliament over the next couple of weeks will have to increase its workload so it can consider a few more bills before it rises for the Christmas break. Some MPs, however, appear to be already reeling under the pressure and are proposing a postponement of the recess date. Others, however, say they prefer the current pace and would rather have Christmas start early for them.
It all started after the chairman and minister in charge of government business read the business statements for the rest of the sitting days.
Judging from the volume of work expected and the need to avail the House enough time to attend to such business, the Business Committee is making a tentative proposal that the House may adjourn on or before Wednesday, the 18th of December 2013. That is subject to the exigencies of the time. The House may have extended sitting to enable the completion of the scheduled business.
It does appear as if there is an unseen hand somewhere which is trying to force us. I mean, seriously, the business that we have before us, can we certainly be diligent? Why the rush? You see, you will give the impression that we want to hide something, and yet that is not the case. But to say that we rise on or before Wednesday, I mean, certainly it's not the case. And it's not what the Business Committee decided. You are not saying that the 18th is not what we agree. We said that the 18th, no, you were saying that we were looking at 19th. I heard you in your first presentation. You said 19th. Your earlier comment, not this one. That's what you said. We agree.
I'm not. What are you people?
We are considering Electoral Commission's estimate probably Tuesday. It is here that we have to debate the same Electoral Commission's report Tuesday. And it's the same leader of the House, chairman of the Business Committee, chairman of the Special Budget Committee, who is tripling as reader of the business statement. So at least we should speak to the consult members of the various committees that the days that we are trying to fix for you.
The only reason why we actually do budgets in a year before the beginning of the year that they apply is to ensure that as soon as government comes in January, they can move. If the central government can move and the local governments cannot move, what have we done? If we don't approve of the DACF and all that until February or March, it will mean that the local government will have to stand still. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we have to do those formulas before we leave.
It's only in the explanatory notes that we think about the time that we are going to adjourn. So let's concentrate on the business statement, which ends on the 13th, because on Friday there will be another business statement. So what are we talking about?
Well, Parliament has paid tribute to farmers ahead of Friday's commemoration of National Farmers' Day, with members very much appreciative of their contribution to national development. Even though they appreciated the efforts made by the various governments in the past, they still believe more can be done to improve the living conditions of farmers.
Especially the cocoa farmers, indirectly have helped the country to discover oil and gas by the foreign capital created for the country. I dare say that it is now the turn of oil and gas money to go into the agri sector to help our farmers in order not to create the so-called Dutch disease syndrome of other countries. So we need to at least take a chunk of the oil money to develop agriculture.
Credit facilities are not available to aid our farmers to produce in large scale. Mr. Speaker, the reward for these few farmers who still persevere in spite of the doubted challenges in the industry only embrace erratic and uncertain rainfall pattern, frustration and disappointment, hence discouraging many more people from joining the agri industry.
It's becoming a ritual and we will have to match these celebrations with commitments. We all talk about agriculture being the backbone of our economy, but as to whether we are really giving agriculture the needed impetus is another question. And so we should move away from the rhetoric and the ritual celebrations, to real action where the impact can be felt.
We say we want to improve agriculture, we want to mechanize agriculture, we want to modernize agriculture. Without farm implements like tractors and harvesters and stuff like this, how do you do that? That is impossible. You see, we are far away from those days where we use cutlasses and hoes for farming. This time around, if you are talking of farming, you are thinking of implements like tractors and harvesters and those things. And as a nation, I don't see us doing enough to improve that situation.
Earlier in the day, the family of the late Harry Sawyer paid a courtesy call on Parliament to officially announce the death and burial arrangements for the deceased statesman. The Speaker and the leaders of the House assured the family of Parliament's support for the former MP, who served 2 terms for the Korle-Klottey constituency. The House resumes on Monday, December 9.
The Teshi Chief's Palace, which was destroyed during a recent chieftaincy dispute, has been renovated at a cost of 40,000 Ghana cedis. The move, the kingmakers believe, should open the way for negotiations between the 3 factions claiming the Teshi stool.
Municipal Chief Executive of the Lejokuku Krowo Municipal Assembly was conducted round the renovated palace when he paid a courtesy call on the Teshi Traditional Council. The council told the MCE the dispute is retarding the growth of the town and urged him to use his office to resolve the impasse.
We have a stool, a blast stool that is supposed to encapsulate the soul and spirit of the nation of Teshi, both the ancestors past, present, and the future, yet unborn. And this is the resting place for the stool. Once the resting place is assured, it means that the soul and spirit of the town has been restored to its normalcy. That means that any attempt to install the future chief will not face any problems at all. So that is, to us, this is symbolic of the good things ahead for the town.
The municipal chief executive assured officials of his commitment to resolving the problem.
Already have started speaking to the elders of the town. I learned we have about 2 factions here. I'm not from Teshi, but this is what I've learned. And due to this, I have called the other faction and also I have come here simply because I want unity to prevail in Teshi. You see, when we sit behind table in a very confined place and also with the elders, all the 2 elders, the 2 traditional elders, I think we will have our peace.
He also spoke about plans to address the water challenge and other developmental issues in the community.
So concerning the schools, my predecessors have already started some of the schools. I know we will complete the schools so that the problem concerning schools will be over. And also concerning water, they have started a desalination project in Nungwa, which will take care of Teshi and other towns.
3 gates, the Ashitewe, Okponwe, and the Ashikwewe, are all claiming the Teshi stool. The authorities, however, say they hope to resolve the conflict before the first half of 2014.
A former chairman of the National Disability Council, Andrew Okankwe, has come to the rescue of the Mampong Senior High Technical School for the deaf by paying half of the 14,000 Ghana cedis rent arrears owed the landlords. The owners of the properties which accommodates the school have threatened to throw out their over 200 students and their teachers unless they make good their rent, which has been in default for more than 2 years. The Ghana Education Service, meanwhile, is yet to decide on how to support the school. Yafusa Jemfi has more.
Wahab, a friend to the former chairman of the National Disability Council, made the donation on his behalf.
Very disappointed and saddened by what we have seen in this school. Not even anything at all. 14,400 Ghana cedis should evict all these students on the streets of Ghana. It's quite as disappointing for a country. I think we shouldn't do this kind of speed ramp approach. The speed ramp approach, as we normally do politically elsewhere in Ghana here, is when the front tire you slow down. But what the back ties, you can roll it over. That is what we do. But we have to look back at such schools and help them.
The assemblyman for the area, Okreku Oko, who witnessed the donation in the presence of the students and staff, was grateful for the gesture and urged other corporate institutions to come to the aid of the school. The school's head prefect, Prince Moka, also expressed gratitude on behalf of the students.
People are now hearing about our developmental problems. Now we have the hope that we can live in the school, and we think in future the school will develop.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Education Service says it is taking steps to address the challenges confronting students of the school. Deputy Director of Education, Stephen Edu, says the GES is still undecided about whether to relocate the school or buy out the property.
So we are looking at all the various options available to us to see which of the options will be very appropriate. So discussions have started, and I can assure you that we will work to the letter to ensure that everything comes to an end.
The school is the only one in the country providing secondary and technical training for hearing and speech impaired students. Besides the challenge of operating from rented classrooms and dormitories that are congested, the lecture halls lack places of convenience, and the students also have to trek some 2 kilometers every day, risking their lives along the busy Ebri-Mampon highway for lectures.
We have more news coming up after the break. Don't go away. Government is set to introduce an industrialization project in the Western Region capital, Takoradi. This is to ensure the country makes the most of the oil and gas boom in the area. President John Mahama said part of the industrialization efforts will be a revitalization of rail transport in the region. He was speaking at the sword cutting for expansion works at the Takoradi port, from where Gifty and Apia reports.
The Takoradi port, also Ghana's premier commercial port, was opened in 1928 and has since been a hub for Ghana's international trade. Its strategic position makes it an ideal gateway not just to the middle and northern parts of Ghana, but also landlocked neighboring countries like Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. Maritime traffic is said to have increased significantly with the oil find, hence the need for an expansion. Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Richard Anamo, at the sword cutting said his outfit is restructuring the ports for further projected maritime activities and to judiciously apply state funds in their work.
The first change, I would say, dates back to 1981, when, following the eruption in our country, then Chairman Rawlings took the bold initiative to put the ports of Ghana at the forefront. But the most significant of all was the fact that it gave that legal status to GPHA to operate as a full commercial entity. We have retooled and retooled and retooled. And today, we stand on behalf of the people of this country to take on the loan and pay for it.
Beyond increasing the port's competitiveness, President Mahama said the expansion project will create a lot of jobs, which for him was most important.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my vision to implement a secondary Takoradi Industrial City Rejuvenation Program that seeks to further open up the region in a manner that gives true meaning to the potential that this region holds. Through the secondary Takoradi Master Plan and the Western Regional Spatial Development Framework, we intend to consolidate growth and create additional space for industrial expansion in this area. Among many others, we're working on a dedicated oil port, services port at Tetuabo, a shore base and fabrication center at Banso, and the revival of railway services in the region, as I've just said. I cannot wait to come back here to inaugurate the start of rail operations on that line. And as you well know, under the CDB facility, we are working vigorously on the development of a secondary Takoradi Free Zones Enclave.
Belgian engineering firm Jean Denol are contractors for the expansion. The president, together with former President Rawlings, who played a critical role in the port's growth, were taken through the master plan and various phases of the project.
President Dramani Mahama has just commissioned the expansion project. Authorities believe that this move will strategically position Ghana on a higher pedestal in the trade involving maritime petroleum here.
He was later taken on a boat tour of the port. The Takoradi-Kojo Chrome rail line was his next point of call. Engineers on site expressed worry about pipelines and other electrical connections of the Ghana Water Company, ECG and telecommunication companies they say are hampering progress of their work. President Mahama entreated them to ensure work is completed on the stretch as soon as possible.
Railway has been one of the failed ventures of this country. Over here, President Mahama has been inspecting works going on here at the railway station. The engineers on site tell him that by end of next year, it is possible that this rail line will be completed. Gifty Ambropia, Joy News, Takoradi.
President Dramani Mahama will leave Accra on Friday, December 6 to Paris for a two-day Elysee Summit on Peace and Security in Africa. The summit, being hosted by French President Francois Hollande, will be attended by a number of African and other world leaders. The heads of states are also expected to discuss issues bordering on economic partnership between France and African countries, the use of fossil fuels for industrial activities, and its contribution to global warming. First Lady Lordina Mahama, who will be accompanying the President, will join a meeting of spouses of the leaders and make a presentation on sexual violence against women in conflict areas in Africa. President Mahama is expected to depart France for New York on Sunday to deliver the first ever Chinua Achebe Leadership Forum lecture. Now, the Dade-Kotopong Municipal Assembly has demolished unauthorized structures at Alimony Junction towards the Two Children's Home. The Assembly says the exercise is to make way for the smooth movement of vehicles and pedestrians. It explains further that being a ceremonial route, it has to be street hawking free.
There are aggrieved victims who said they were only informed by the assembly not to move beyond the pavement. Other than that, they have been paying tolls for the spots they occupied. Anthony Gafifie, an engineering officer at the Dade-Kotopong Municipal Assembly, said the traders were given a month's notice to evacuate because the road is not for trading purposes.
If the person has wisdom and you tell him that this is exercise is coming, would he sit and wait for it to come before it comes? They didn't. So what is happening to them is what they themselves have brought upon themselves, because we give them adequate warning to move their things.
Several structures were brought down and items worth thousands of Ghana cedis were destroyed, with the exception of these little kiosks and a few others. But the officer from the assembly could not explain why they had been spared. Meanwhile, a taxi driver whose car was damaged in the exercise is demanding that the assembly repair it for him.
The police didn't know direct the car, or directly any bano. And I have a drone until no machine casino, or no one anymore peja container. I say container. Things that all say you know, or better was a few on once. And I can't with traffic action or no bannetina, police in engine machine and when you know, and on the other pim mecano. Because catch a penny and a penny can say, oh no, new ones and be a can almost mean ones and be a one say.
Mimi Salah battle.
The Ghana Institution of Surveyors has lamented the proliferation of unqualified estate agents. According to the institution's president, James E.K. Datsing, the group is pushing for the Estate Agency Act and the Survey Council Act to help regulate the practice. He disclosed this during a courtesy call on former President Kufuor at his home.
The
The surveyor, whether land, quantity or estates, plays an important role in the building and construction industry and development as a whole. Though the Ghana Institution of Surveyors has been in existence since 1970, it says the role of its members has been largely overlooked, with the public preferring to rely on the services of unqualified persons. The Institute's president explains the courtesy call on the former president as part of an outreach program to get their message out.
You'll be surprised to know that we don't even have the appropriate laws governing the work of surveyors in the country. We have been pushing over the years for the passage of the Estate Agency Act and then the Survey Council Act. I mean, these are two acts that are supposed to regulate the work of surveyors in the country. If you take Estate Agency, for example, anybody at all can go on the market and call himself an estate agent. There are no laws that regulate this practice. And so we are pushing for the laws to be passed. And as part of the advocacy, we are here also to humbly solicit your assistance, because we know and we think that we can work with you to make this area achieve the benefits that will go to our society as a whole.
President Kufuor thanked the delegation for the initiative to create awareness on the essence of a qualified surveyor. He also expressed his gratitude to the group for showing interest in working with his foundation.
I'm so pleased to see all of you and to welcome you. Why? Because one, you offered to collaborate with my foundation. Two, that you've also highlighted the many problems and challenges belaboring I would say land market. We cannot sort of operate in the land market without some technical guidance. It's your profession that would enable us know the value of the land on which we live. When somebody gets a bit of money and wants to put up something, he goes and gets some bricklayer or mason, and without the necessary drawings, without the quantity surveyors coming in, they go construct anything, and then before you know, there's collapse and people are endangered. So I appreciate your coming to see me.
Leader of the institution, James E.K. Datson, encouraged Ghanaians to patronize qualified surveyors to avoid unnecessary challenges.
It becomes more expensive in the long run if you don't use the right professionals. You see, the services of the surveyor are not that expensive or a professional, so we will encourage Ghanaians to use professionals.
The institution also presented the former president with 2 books authored by members of the association on land valuation.
Now, President Dramani Mahama has directed all ministries, departments and agencies to desist from using public resources for Christmas and New Year gifts such as hampers during the upcoming Yuletide. A letter from the Office of the President and signed by the Executive Secretary to the President, Dr. Raymond Atugoba, said the decision, which previously affected only ministries, has been extended to include the departments and agencies under the ministries and also metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies. The letter asked ministers of state to ensure strict compliance with the directive at all levels of government, adding that heads of MDAs which flout the directive will be surcharged with the cost of same to serve as a deterrent to others. We'll bring you business and finance after the break. Now, the Board of Directors of Ghana Post wants government to assist the company with a technological system that would link all 350 postal offices in the country. Officials also want government to use the postal service for the distribution of passports, the national ID and health insurance cards and voters' ID cards as part of efforts to help revamp its operations. The company at its annual general meeting also announced that it incurred some 2 million Ghana cedis in bad debts in 2012.
The advancement in technology and the growth of the internet has led to a sharp decline in the exchange of letters and other postal services, and as a result, a drastic decline in the main revenue stream for Ghana Post. Officials at the company's AGM say the company processed 1 million letters in 2012, half of what they handled the previous year. Managing Director Abdullahi Abdul Rafiu said even though the company has witnessed a significant drop in its letter distribution operations, the postal courier services business was still lucrative and called on government to build them out.
In fact, we need a network. We have 350 post offices. Can we get technology that enables the post offices to talk to each other? That whatever I do at, Bole, you can see it in Accra. Whatever I do at Bunkpurugu, you can see it in Accra. That is the kind of network that we are. Because once we have that network, third parties can ride on that network, because a private operator will find it very difficult to create this kind of network. So once we have that network, once we are able to network it, it means that other people can ride on that network, deliver services through the post, and will make more revenue for the system.
The challenges notwithstanding, Ghana Post posted an overall increase in revenue from 1.5 million Ghana cedis in 2011 to 2.6 million in 2012, even though stamp sales dropped to 1.6 million Ghana cedis within the same period, emphasizing the contribution of its courier operations.
A new debt management system has been introduced under the new Ghana Infrastructure Fund announced last month, which President Mahama says should radically improve Ghana's current debt to GDP ratio. A low debt to GDP ratio indicates an economy producing and selling goods and services has the wherewithal to pay back debts without incurring further debt. Ghana's current debt to GDP ratio is estimated at 52%. Under the new arrangement, debts and responsibility of such debts owed by state institutions with ability to offset these debts are expected to be integrated under a debt service account set up by the companies under the Infrastructure Fund. President Mahama said this should reduce Ghana's debt to GDP ratio to 40%. He made the remarks at a sword-cutting ceremony in Takoradi. He also announced an implementation team to provide a further breakdown on the new Ghana Infrastructure Fund.
Weeks, an implementation team will be announced and charged with the responsibility of setting out the modalities for the establishment of the Ghana Infrastructure Fund that was recently announced in the budget. For those who have expressed worry about our current debt to GDP ratio, which is estimated currently at about 52%, I wish to assure them that we have begun a process of disaggregation of our debt and responsibility for debt owed by state-owned organizations like Gridco, Ghana Gas, Ghana Airports Company Limited, VRA, Electricity Company of Ghana, GPHA, but to name a few, that have potential to pay these debts would be transferred to debt service accounts set up by these companies under the Ghana Infra Fund. This exercise should significantly bring down our debt to GDP ratio. It is estimated to come down as low as 40%.
Vice President Kwesi Emisarata is rooting for financial support from the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, a United States organization which mobilizes private capital for development projects. The Vice President said such enterprises are deserving of financial assistance since the activities have far-reaching implications on the economy. He made these remarks when the President of OPIC, Elizabeth Littlefield, called on him to formally brief him about their projects in Ghana.
OPIC seeks to strengthen and advance United States foreign policy with its developmental activities, especially in Africa. Its president, Madam Littlefield, said the institution is collaborating with relevant ministries to execute health, agriculture and water-related projects in over 38 communities in Ghana.
OPIC has supported the financing of the rehabilitation of not only Korle-Bu but other teaching hospitals, as well as 7 regional hospitals, 90 district hospitals, and 320 local health systems, health clinics. And we understand that most of the system had not been refurbished or rehabilitated in almost 20 years. So this is a big project for us, and our job is working with the private sector for the benefit of development. And we wanted to come today, actually, at the specific request of President Obama, to lend our contribution to reinforcing the very strong partnership between Ghana and the United States. We're doing about $1 billion a year in financing and loans and guarantees and insurance in Africa. We have about $840 million in commitments in Ghana today. And one of our objectives in coming here is to meet businesses, meet American businesses investing here and Canadian businesses with U.S. connections that we can then help finance. We'd like to see that number of $850 million double, if we could, over the next few years.
Vice President Kwesi Amisa-Arthur requested the formulation of a program that reaches out to small and medium-scale industries, especially those within the agricultural sector.
It's overwhelmingly private sector. Most the entire agricultural sector is private, and lots of women and lots of small enterprises that require some financing. They have been involved in looking for financing from small informal money lenders, which makes it very expensive for them.
Susus.
Well, the susus are not even as bad as some of the other types. The susus are contributory form of financing, but there are other usurious financing houses that make it very difficult for the agricultural sector to develop in the way that we want. But we can put together a number of small, medium enterprises that will then be able to access some of the financing that is made available by OPIC, and that would be interesting because some of them in the informal sector, they have not been able to get to a stage where they have adequate financial reports that allow them to access the formal financial sector. And
that'll be all for Business with Sports is next with George Addo Jr.
The eyes of the world will turn to Brazil's Atlantic coast for the 2014 World Cup Finals draw tomorrow. It's supposed to be the moment which lights the touch paper on one of the most enticing tournaments in the competition's long and rich history. Ghanaians will be eager to find out who they play in the group stage of next year's World Cup.
In the leafy setting of Costa do Sauípe on Brazil's Atlantic coast, the fates of the World Cup's 32 teams will be largely decided. For the selection phase of the draw can all but end a World Cup campaign before it's even started. Just ask Yaya Toure, whose Ivory Coast side are hoping for better luck after two devilish draws.
In 2010 we get Brazil and Portugal, and in 2006 we get Holland and Argentina as well. It was a tough group for us. We hope we close the hand if we get a chance to get a good draw and have to be in a good group and try to perform well.
The Elephants are trying to reach the knockout stages for the first time, as are Algeria, who will be at their fourth World Cup next year. The African record holders in terms of World Cup appearances are Samuel Eto'o's Cameroon, who will be contesting their seventh finals. But since the heady days of 1990, when Roger Milla lit up the world, the indomitable Lions have failed to reach the knockout stage again. No such problem, though, for Ghana, who have qualified from the group phase at both their World Cups. In South Africa, they came the closest of any African side in history to reaching the last four, only to be denied when Asamoah Gyan's last-minute penalty crashed against the bar. So the semi-finals remain an invisible barrier. But they were Kenneth Omoruo's firm target when he was asked what stage he wants Nigeria to reach next year.
To get to the semi-finals and try to win something, because we just don't want to be among the clubs that just want to qualify and that's it. We want to actually get to a stage that will really shock people.
So the African champions have the semi-finals in their sights, but first there's the small matter of the luck of the draw to deal with.
All right, so we'll be looking up to all of that happens, really. And now the Black Stars captain Asamoah Gyan is one of 10 players who have been shortlisted for the 2013 CAF African Player of the Year award, following voting from members of CAF's Technical Development and Media Committees. Black Satellite striker Ebenezer Sifo has also been nominated for CAF's Most Promising Talent award. Ghana captain Asamoah Gyan has been shortlisted by CAF for the 2013 African Player of the Year award. The Alain striker is one of 10 players who have been shortlisted following voting from members of the technical and development and media committees from the initial list of nominees. 4 Nigerians, including John Mikelobi, goalkeeper Vincent Enyama, Emmanuel Emenike and Ahmed Musa, all made the reduced 10-man shortlist. The reigning CAF Player of the Year, Yaya Toure of Ivory Coast, is also in the running to retain his crown, as well as Egypt's Mohamed Aboutrika, who has been nominated for both the African Player of the Year and the Award for Africa-Based Footballer, which he won last year. Members of CAF's Technical and Development and Media Committees reduced the African Player of the Year award from 25, while the Africa-based list was cut from 21 nominees. The head coaches of the National Football Associations affiliated to CAF will now vote to decide the eventual winners of the 2 categories. The winners will be announced at the Glow CAF Awards Gala scheduled for 9th January next year in Lagos, Nigeria. It's certainly an award that's always come up with a lot of controversies. We hope that the next year's own definitely doesn't pop up one of those controversies. That'll be all for sports tonight. My name is George Ade Jr. Israelite will join us with some more. You have a good night.
Sports was brought to you in association